everyone, it's Amber Spotted Elk at the Paper Owl and welcome to my channel. Today we have 5 awesome holiday DIYs in store for you. So as always, if you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. It really does help my channel. Comment below, let me know which project is your favorite. And if you'd like to become part of the Paper Owl family, subscribe, hit that bell button so you get notified every single time that I upload. And without further ado, let's get started. Hey everyone, so we're starting out. I've got 7 of those jumbo popsicle sticks. I had already cut the edges and dyed them with the Minwax dark walnut stain. I didn't think you guys needed to watch me particularly do that. And then I've got one of these Dollar Tree ornaments and a wreath I bought on clearance last year for like 10 cents after the holiday season. And then one of these Dollar Tree shadow boxes. So basically, I am just layering these sticks on here and I'm going kind of in a zigzag, or not zigzag, but in a, uneven manner as I'm laying them down. There was already a hanging element on the back of this sign, and so I decided to use the front of the sign and keep that hanging element back there rather than trying to take it off and change it all up. This doesn't need a whole lot of support in the middle just because it's just going to have some light weight things on here. So I figured it wasn't that big of a deal. You could always add supports underneath as well if you needed to. Basically, I just add some extra greenery around this wreath to give it some depth, to give it some extra color. And then I glue my ornament down on there. I did put a little extra greenery around the neck there and a few extra berries. And then that peace and joy sign I glued down. And that's it, you guys. Like, so simple, so easy, so cute. I love the way this turned out. It's got that kind of rustic feel to it, but still has that kind of sparkly reindeer to give it some Christmas glam. So super happy with how that turned out. Next up, we're going to be using 3 of these signs from the Dollar Tree that have that wooden bead hanging element on there. I didn't have a third black one, so I take one of the white ones and I just taped off my beads to make sure I didn't get any paint on them. Somehow, I still managed to get like a tiny little piece of black paint, and I just end up taking that off with some sandpaper after I'm all done. But so you can tape off all your beads if you're a really messy painter. If you're not, but you still end up getting a little on there, like I said, sandpaper worked super well. I just waited for it to dry and then sanded it off of there. Anyway, I'm painting this in a Waverly's chalk paint in the color ink, which is essentially black. And this frame had like a weird texture to it. Like, it was kind of slippery. You can see like some white spots showing up after I paint on it. And that's like the paint was like separating on this frame after I was putting it on there. So, like I said, because it had that kind of like slippery texture, the paint wasn't necessarily like bonding to it right away. And so I do give it kind of like one good full coat of the Waverly chalk paint, and then I let that dry, and then I go back and I add a layer of Mod Podge on there just to make sure it's really going to stick, it's not going to chip super easily. And that really added that Mod Pod. Oh my goodness. I cannot speak. That Mod Podge layer really added enough texture for that chalk paint to grab onto and give it some nice coverage. So if you do end up painting one of these frames with that wooden handle on there, or wooden hanging element, I would go ahead and just paint it with the Mod Podge first and then add your paint on, and you may be able to get away with even just one coat versus the 2 coats that I had to do. So not a huge deal, but just a little tip for you guys if you're going to be using these signs or painting them in any way. So I get all of the sign colored. I clearly took out the middle portion of it there, and because we're going to be putting some scrapbook paper over that in just a moment. And I got this scrapbook paper pack from Michael's last year. It's called like Christmas Cabin or like Cozy Cabin or something like that, but it's got a lot of nice prints on there. You get 48 sheets for $6, which is, if you do the math, double the price that you would get from Hobby Lobby if you buy their 4 sheets for $1 when you get sheets from them. So obviously, you're not able to pick how many sheets and what designs you get when you buy the paper pack, but you get 48 sheets. Usually, it's two designs or 2 sheets per design. And so they have some great designs. A lot of times, they have some sheets that have like wording on them that you can use, which is really nice. I myself love scrapbooking paper and doing different paper crafts as well, and so I definitely like to stock up on different types of scrapbooking paper. So just a little tip there: if you find some collections you like at Michael's, they usually have that sale, I think every like 2 to 3 weeks or something like that. So definitely keep an eye out for it. But yeah, there it is, Christmas Cabin. So I take this kind of like artsy snowflake paper, I guess. It's like kind of an off-white with like these black snowflake-esque snowflakes on there. And I cut these down to about 5.5 by 5.5, which is what those measured. And I put our Dollar Tree decals on here. I lay them out, make sure I like the way that they look before I go ahead and glue them down. And I just use a glue stick. Worked out super nice, and it's actually a dollar. Is it a Dollar Tree? It is a Dollar Tree glue stick, but it didn't leave any like, you know, glue behind underneath that I could see, and so it made the decals really stick seamlessly, which I love. They turned out great. I do use a tool to kind of like burnish them down to make sure the glue kind of gets in all the spaces I want it to make sure that these are very well adhered to the paper and that none of the corners are going to be like peeling up or anything. So and then basically I just pop those in, and I do take some of the ribbon from the Dollar Tree that I cut down into little strips, and I made tiny bows, and I put those on the pictures as well, and it adds some dimension and some texture. You can see here I put the bow along the deer's wreath on his neck, and then up in the corner here for the Merry Christmas, and then on the wreath for this last one. And I love the way these turned out. I just think they're so cute. I love that retro vibe that they have. Next up, we're going to be doing the placemat pillows, and I love these. The placemats are such a good quality, like they're just nice and thick. The designs on them are great. They have this kind of like gold um, uh, thread, I guess, is maybe the word I'm looking for in them. And so it just makes them really shiny. You know, they've got this kind of traditional feel to them, but that gold adds some of that nice Christmas sparkle. And I'm just using hot glue to put these together. So I fold over the edge of my cloth to make sure it has a nice seam. So that's why I have that kind of like inch of extra material around the edges, because I'm folding that over to make sure there's a nice seam. And then I leave one side empty. I use this Relax essential oils from Dollar Tree. I put that on my filling to add a little extra smell to these pillows. It gives them kind of a mint smell to go along with Christmas. And also, it's that relax blend. So, if you are on the couch and you grab one of these to, you know, lay your head on or, you know, prop up behind your back or whatever, it has a gorgeous smell to it, and I absolutely love doing this. If you do have a soft fabric that you're backing it with, though, you don't want your polyfill with the essential oils to be touching that back, because that oil will stain the back of it. So these are the ones that I did. I did 2 of the Merry Christmas and 2 of the poinsettias. And so I used that plaid fabric from the Dollar Tree to back the Merry Christmas pillow here in the front, as you can see. And then I just did that light green on the other one. So cute. Love those. And then I take this large ornament, I take off the metal piece, and then I peel off all of that paper and that believe sign we're going to be using as well. And so I paint this with kind of an ivory. I use that liqueur red paint from Dollar Tree, and then you're going to need some painter's tape as well. So I use the ivory by Apple Barrel and then some of the white Waverly chalk paint to give it kind of a light, more of a light ivory um, coloring to it, I guess. And I'm using this painter's tape basically to make 2 small stripes on the side here, and then I'm going to put a large stripe in the middle, so it's kind of that like French stripe, I think is the name of it. The liqueur paint was a little too like bright red for me. It was almost looking like a reddish pink or something of that nature. And so I end up taking like just the tiniest bit of black and adding it in there to make this more maroon color. So I take off my painter's tape and I end up peeling some of my paint up, which is fine. You just have to repaint it. So I wait until everything is done before I repaint the ivory on there. But you can see we've got some nice thin stripes. I love how the stripes turned out. And then I just recycle my painter's tape because why not? You don't need to get new pieces out. And I then mark off the stripes with a little bit over on each one to make a gap in between there for that large stripe. And that's how it turned out. I added some greenery at the top with a ribbon, and then I painted the believe sign black just to make it pop a little bit more. But I absolutely love the way those turned out. Next up, I'm using 2 of these beware signs from Halloween. They have that kind of nice scalloped edging that I really like. I do use some light spackling also from the Dollar Tree to fill in those holes. And then once it's dry, I do sand it down a little bit. I do recommend that, especially if you use a lot and there's a lot in that area. You want to make sure that it's nice and flush. And so here again, I'm making kind of my own ivory. And this time I'm using the Waverly chalk paint in the color white as well as the color hazelnut or hazelnut. It's a light brown, and I'm mixing it in with the white, and I want it to be more of a darker ivory so that it's very apparent that it's an ivory, whereas that last ivory I did, it could possibly pass for white if you're looking from far away. This is very ivory. So I paint both of the backs of these signs and I give them a good like 1.5 coats, if that's a thing. I do one good solid coat and then I just basically kind of go back over in a few spots if there's any areas that look a little bit more sparse than the other areas. So I make sure they're nice and dry with my heat tool before I paint on any extra. And then when I'm done, I make sure I use my heat tool again. That's really going to help with adding the painter's tape on and the decals that we're going to be doing. So definitely make sure your piece is all the way dry. So this is going to say, "Oh, holy night." And I'm not even having to use my weeding tool. These these phrases are so large that I am just able to use my hands to get all the pieces out. So that was really exciting that I didn't need to sit there and like weed out a whole bunch of tiny little intricate pieces because that can definitely um, be not very much fun. So I get everything all weeded out, and then I'm using this contact paper as my transfer paper, and it works so amazingly. Like it just, I love it. It, oh my gosh. if I can talk without stuttering, it adheres to my vinyl so well, and then it adheres it down to whatever I'm attaching it to, but it never peels up my paint. It never does any damage. Like, it's just strong enough to do what it needs to do and doesn't do anything more. And I love it. I ended up like getting it at like a garage sale or like a thrift store or something for like $1 or a couple dollars for this giant roll of contact paper. So if you ever see the brand that's actual contact paper, I definitely recommend it. So I'm basically just using that to put on my Oh Holy Night. I do burnish it down when I put it on the board just to make sure that it's really going to stick. It is black permanent vinyl, but I want to make sure that none of the little edges start coming up or anything like that. And then I start again with the French stripe, and I do this on the right side of the board. And I do it for both of them, where I create the two skinny lines and then the large line in the middle. Again, this is all, of course, just personal preference. So if you don't like that look, then you absolutely could keep it plain or create a border or do whatever makes your heart happy. One thing I do recommend that I forgot to do on the other piece is put a layer of Mod Podge down before you put your paint down. And this creates a nice sealed barrier where your painter's tape is to prevent any bleeding, any of the paint leaking through and not giving you that nice crisp line. And that works especially well for these like tiny little strips that we're doing and the tiny little spaces. And so if you get a bleed there, then it's just kind of connecting everything. So it does not look very well. And so I absolutely love putting that Mod Podge down when I'm using painter's tape and doing anything with it. And look how cute it turns out. I love these stripes. I love what it adds to the sign. I just think they turned out super cute. I love the Oh Holy Night song as well. I love Christmas songs. I know they're not for everyone, but I myself am so happy. So happy? What is that? I, I don't know why I can't speak. Anyway, I'm so happy to be playing Christmas music and getting into that mood. It just makes my soul happy. Oh goodness. Uh, Hopefully you guys are still watching. Anyway, again, here's that Mod Podge layer, and I think it's just a great tip. I would constantly get bleeds before, and this just really changed all of that. So I'm using the Mod Podge and matte. I don't think it really matters which Mod Podge you use, but that's the one that I have. So, and they just turn out so clean. I messed up on a couple spots, and there was like a little bleed in a couple areas, but that was my fault for anyway. I fixed those up, and I put this actually on my mirror. So I love this. Don't mind my dirty downstairs craft area here, but I love this just kind of stuck up on my mirror. And then this Oh Holy Night, I love the size of these. I really love the way that they turned out. And then we've got our vintage pieces here again. I love that vintage look. It's just so classic. I love that traditional feel. And then we have our little reindeer sign, which turned out so cute. And I love that, the feel of that as well. And then our Believe ornament. Please comment below. Let me know which one of these is your favorite, how you like to decorate for Christmas. I would love to know. And thank you so much for watching, and happy crafting.